Hello. Just out of curiosity, let me see a show of hands for everyone who's ever made a skydive here. There's several of you out there. Well, you guys must be nuts. You have to admit, jumping out of a perfectly good airplane is a pretty crazy thing to do. You know, I really think that it would be downright stupid if it wasn't for one thing. There is nothing more incredible than flying through the sky past the clouds using your arms and legs as wings, unattached to any man-made flying machine. There's nothing like it. Most people think that skydivers like to jump because we love the adrenaline rush, but that's not it at all. I don't like to be scared. It frightens the hell out of me to be scared. We jump because we love to fly. And in free fall, there's no sensation of falling. Relative to other people we're in free fall with, we have complete control and complete maneuverability. It's the closest mankind has come to experiencing really true human flight. There's nothing else like it. I did my first jump back when I was in college. It was freshman year, living in the dorms, middle of the winter, and we were hanging out, and the idea of skydiving came up. There's about 12 of us who said how skydiving had been a lifelong dream of ours. We'd wanted to do it ever since the first time we saw a picture of a parachute or a film of somebody in free fall. And we promised that as soon as the winter was over, we'd schedule a day and we'd all go make our first jump together. Well, in the middle of the winter, when it was impossible to do that, it was really easy to talk big. But when that day finally arrived, I got up in the morning and I was terrified. You know, I slowly went over to the window and pulled the curtain to check the weather, and I was begging that it would be pouring rain so that I had an excuse not to go and I wouldn't have to chicken out in front of everybody. No such luck. It was beautiful blue skies. Some of my friends who lived right in the rooms next to me in the same building must have looked out a completely different window. Because of the 12 of us that were going to go that day, only 4 of us actually made it to the skydiving center. This is over 30 years ago now, and skydiving was much different back then. We used round military surplus parachutes, and they were connected to the airplane with a static line. And the static line would deploy the parachute as soon as you left the airplane. So it'd only be about 2 or 3 seconds of free fall. We used single-engine Cessna planes, tiny little airplanes, that all the seats had been taken out of so that we could fit inside them with the big equipment that we had. Remember, seated on the floor, facing backwards in the airplane, the pilot was here, and next to me on this side was a big hole in the airplane where the door had been removed. And all the ride up, I was just about climbing into the pilot's lap because I didn't want to get too close to this door before it was really time to go. About 800 meters, the instructor looked at me and he said, "Climb out." Never been so terrified in my life. I slowly put my foot outside and reached for the landing gear. And I reached outside and I grabbed the wing strut and I pulled myself out. So I'm now standing under the wing in the wind, balancing on the tire and holding onto the strut for dear life. And I looked back in at the instructor and he said, "Go." Right then I knew this was it. This was the moment of decision time. All the dreaming about skydiving and talking about skydiving came down to this second. It wasn't too late. I could still change my mind and climb back inside. And I was seriously thinking about doing that. But if I ever wanted to fly, like I had always dreamed of, I was going to need to jump off this plane. Well, I was still standing there holding on, thinking about it as we flew way past where I was supposed to leave the airplane. And I thought, I made it this far, I got to go. And I just jumped off and arched as hard as I could, and I watched the plane fly away from me. That moment of decision time is the essence of what is meant by the phrase, taking a leap of faith. I had researched all I could and found out everything there was to know about skydiving. But there was still so much that I didn't know and that I couldn't know. At that moment, I had to have a little faith and just trust that my equipment and myself and the world that I was going to leap into would work out as they should. I think most of the time when we're really trying to achieve a big goal, it's much that way. We don't often strive to achieve something that we've done before 100 times. We try to do things we've never done before, or possibly that no one has ever done before. I don't see how it's possible to know everything you need to know about something you've never done before. To some degree or another, when you're really trying to stretch yourself and reach for a big goal like that, you're probably going to have to take some kind of leap of faith. Well, can I get a glass of water, too? From that moment on, I was jumping out of airplanes every chance I could. And soon I discovered four-way formation skydiving. And four-way is the most competitive athletic event that there is in the sport of skydiving. The French team were the world champions, and these guys were incredible. To watch them fly was like watching nobody else. They were so fast. They were so precise. They were so in sync with each other all the time. Thank you. And I watched them, and I thought, that's it. That's how I want to fly. That's the way it's done right there. And the more I thought about it, I thought, I think I can learn to fly like them. I think I can learn to do that. And then it occurred to me, if I can learn to do that, I could be a world champion too. And I had never won anything. I'd never even tried to win anything. But the idea of becoming a world champion at this sport that I had so fallen in love with just grabbed me like nothing had ever grabbed me before. But how could I possibly compete against the French team? These guys were a professional skydiving team. They had all the resources anybody could ever want. They each had 2 sets of parachute equipment. They had professional packers who packed the parachutes for them, so they never had to stop to do that. They had an airplane of their own at their disposal whenever they needed it. We each had 1 set of parachute equipment. We had to pack for ourselves in between every jump. And then we got on the airplanes with the rest of the skydivers whenever there was space available. They were going to make about 1,000 practice jumps in a year. We'd make maybe 150. The obstacles just seemed to be too many. And based on the numbers alone, it would be impossible to compete against the pros. But I've never been that strict of a numbers person, so I asked myself another question. Is it possible for me to succeed? Not, is it guaranteed if I do the work, I'll win? Not even is it likely. But could the circumstances exist that make it even remotely possible that I could compete against the pros? Well, these guys weren't gods. They weren't superhuman beings. They're just people, and like everybody else, they could be beat. And that raises a second question. Did I want it badly enough to do what it was going to take to make it happen? And that's the real question. A lot of people have the potential to succeed. Far fewer are willing to make the commitment, make the sacrifices, to take whatever risks there are, and to do the hard work that's going to be necessary. So the next question was, what's it going to take? Well, for starters, I was going to have to quit my job, leave my home, and move somewhere south that we could find a skydiving center with good weather that was open all year round. Secondly, I was going to have to sell everything I owned and beg, borrow, and steal to come up with the rest of the money that this was going to take. And third, and probably most difficult, I had to find 4 other guys who were as nuts as I was, who wanted the same goal and were willing to make the same commitment. Well, it just didn't seem like it was going to add up. So I thought it through, and I thought, this is what I want more than I've ever wanted anything. I'm going to have to try. So I quit my job, packed up my van with the clothes that I had left after selling everything, and moved south looking for a team. Luckily enough, I actually found people who were as nuts as I was, who wanted to make the same commitment and go after the same goal. We moved to a skydiving center in Arizona. We lived in our vans. We ate out of coolers. And we went skydiving all day, every day. 10 months and 750 jumps later, we made it to the National Skydiving Championships. And we went head-to-head with the pro teams. It was great. We were right on their level, skydiving as good as I had seen the French do. And now that I was able to fly like this, it was as fabulous as I always wanted it to be. But when it was all said and done, we lost the meet. Well, at this point, I figured that my quest for the World Championship was over. I was out of time. I was out of money. If I wanted to have dinner that night, I was going to have to find a job. And then suddenly I started getting contacted from skydiving teams all around the world. They had seen what our rookie team had done, how far we had progressed in such a short period of time. No team had ever done this before. And they thought, well, if we could do it, then they could probably do it too. And they started hiring me to show them how. Before I knew it, my whole schedule was filled with coaching teams, and I was getting paid to do this. Then I got a phone call from the largest skydiving center in California, one of the largest in the world. They offered me a job. They wanted to start a team of their own, sponsor it themselves, and they wanted to hire me to be the player, coach, and captain of that team. They were going to pay me to do four-way. They were going to pay me to do what I had just sold everything but my soul to come up with the money to do. Well, no job like this had ever existed, so I had never even thought about looking for one. The job came looking for me, and it was my pursuit of victory that created this opportunity for me. It was the pursuit of victory, not the victory itself. I had still never won anything. Well, this was the opportunity of a lifetime, and I wasn't going to let it slip by for a second. It gave me the chance to collective team with some of my best friends who I also knew had unlimited potential in the sport. We started training immediately, and we had a learning curve that was steeper than any team I'd been on so far. Every day, we had the chance to really challenge ourselves to be the best athletes, the best sportsmen, the best flyers, the best teammates, and really the best people that we could be. I know it's the most overused cliche in the world, but I was truly living my dream. Then I was waking up one day, and usually I would just leap out of bed. I couldn't wait to go to work. And this day was different. This day I could hardly get out of bed. And I felt like I was so heavy, like there was someone pushing me down into bed. And I was trying to collect my thoughts, but I couldn't even think straight. I tried to open my eyes, but didn't have the energy to even peel my eyelids open. And I thought, there's something wrong. There's something seriously wrong here. When I was able to finally open my eyes, I found myself laying flat on my back and staring straight up at the ceiling. And over me, I saw wires and hoses and lights and gauges. And I realized I'm waking up in a hospital bed. And I had no idea what had happened or what I was doing there or what was going on. I soon found out that I had been in a plane crash. In the crash, I had broken my neck and cracked my skull, had a severe brain injury, collapsed one lung, and had other internal damage. You can imagine that this was quite disturbing because the last thing I could remember, I was great. I was on top of the world. That wasn't all the bad news. The plane we were riding in carried 22 people. 16 of the 22 had been killed in the crash. One of them was one of my teammates who was like a little brother to me. Other members of a team called Tomscat from Holland that had come to work with me in California. All the rest, pretty much close friends of mine. The crash had been over a month ago. They told me I had been in a coma for nearly 6 weeks and lost 40 pounds. While I was sitting there trying to grasp all this, I realized that not only are these friends gone, but they were buried weeks ago. This is already history. The doctor came in, and he told me I was lucky to be alive, which was fairly clear. He said that it looked like I'd be able to recover and go back to a normal life. But it would be a new normal. It would be a normal that included daily medication and that excluded any rigorous athletic activity, sports, and that I would certainly never skydive again. It was like I was waking up in a completely different world than the one I remembered, like there was a parallel universe, and I was a completely different person here. The world I remembered, I was strong, I was confident, I was completely independent. I had a very clear goal that I was aiming for. I had a path on how I planned to get there, and I knew who I was and the person I was hoping to become in pursuit of that goal. That was all over. Now I woke up a completely different person. I was weak, I was fragile, I was insecure, I wasn't thinking straight. I was completely dependent on everybody else for everything. I didn't recognize myself. I didn't recognize myself when I was looking from the inside out, and I certainly didn't know who that was I was looking at in a mirror. And I had no idea what my future could possibly hold. But I did remember one thing. I remembered what it felt like to truly, truly be living my dream. And after having had the chance to experience life like that, I did not want to settle for anything less. If I couldn't skydive anymore, I'd have to find a new dream. But whether I could continue this pursuit for the World Championships, even under these circumstances, came down to the same two questions. Was it possible for me to succeed? Well, despite the doctor's grim prognosis, I saw no reason that I couldn't skydive again. My spinal cord, fortunately, was intact. My internal organs were working well enough that I would get by. Did I want it badly enough to do what it was going to take to make it happen? I'd never been in a situation like this before, so I really didn't know what it was going to take. But I knew that if I could get past this time, I'd be ready to handle any challenge that came up. Having said yes to both those questions, I had to try. I had to. We recovered. We rebuilt our team. We made it to the national championships that same year, and we got the bronze medal. We rebuilt the team, got back to the national championships the next year, and got the silver medal. Rebuilt the team again, got back to nationals, and finally won the gold medal, and went on to win the world championships the next 5 times in a row. Having finally... Thanks, I needed a drink. Having finally achieved this goal I was after, I could not have been more proud. But those particular championships and those medals, they were single moments in time. They were so short-lived. You know, really pursuing your dream and going after your goal, that was a way of life. And after almost having had my life taken away from me, that's the way of life I'm always going to choose to live. You know, all of you guys have great ideas. That's why you're here. That's what TED is all about. And with those ideas come specific goals. Make sure you're not just talking about them. Go after those goals. Pursue those dreams. Follow your passion. I know these are cliches you're sick of hearing, but they're not only cliches. They're very real if you want to make them real. Ask yourself those 2 questions. Is it possible for you to succeed? And if so, do you want it badly enough to do what it's going to take or not? If you answer yes to both those questions, then you owe it to yourself to try. It won't matter. It won't matter if you actually win or not. Make it to decision time. Have the chance to take that leap of faith. Even if you don't accomplish exactly what you're after, the pursuit of that goal itself, just by doing that, you'll enrich your life more than you had possibly anticipated. And I strongly encourage you to do so. Thank you.